when I saw him playing in different tournaments, I noticed one thing, and that is exactly how Arjun plays. He doesn't look all of these things, just making him a very, very dangerous opponent. Bobby Fischer's highest rating was 2785. Arjun Erigaisi's live rating after his 6th round victory in the Chess Olympiad is 2792, surpassing the highest rating of the great Bobby Fischer. Arjun is playing with the black pieces, and we have e4, e5 on the board. Sanan Sjugirov is a strong grandmaster from Russia who now represents Hungary, and this match was played between India and Hungary in round number 6. So after e4, e5, we have knight f3, knight c6. The Royal Lopez is on the board. a6, the bishop moves, and all of this is standard theory until Arjun decides, instead of choosing to go with the main line, he plays d6. Now this is known as the Steinitz deferred variation, not very popular, but it is still kind of playable if you are, well prepared in this, which Arjun clearly was. White went rook e1, Arjun goes bishop d7, c3, and now instead of developing the bishop here, where it would be kind of passive, Arjun plays the move g6. d4 was played, and now he goes bishop to g7. And now you may think that this e5 pawn may be hanging, right? Because white can take, and just gobble this pawn. However, the problem is black is able to take, and yes, white gains this pawn, but black is not going to take this pawn back. Black is simply going to short castle. And if you take, black will now take the pawn, and the thing here is these bishops are super duper active. Next move, the rooks are coming into the game, and for that lost pawn, black has a lot of counterplay. So this is not what white chooses, and he rightly so plays the move h3. Arjun castles, knight d2, and we have take, and knight b4. Offering to trade bishops, the bishops get traded. Now the queen comes to b3, hoping to kick away this knight. However, Arjun simply defends. White says, no, the knight can't stand there, it has to go. So the knight runs back to c6. Once again, white says the knight can't stand there, it has to go. And now, if you're not prepared, most players would play knight e7, knight d8, or maybe knight a7. Arjun here plays the move knight to b8. And to tell you, Arjun in this position, he started the game with 1 hour 30 minutes, and right now he has 1 hour 32 minutes. You know that increment, that 30-second increment after every move is adding up, and he has more time on his clock than he originally started with. That's how fast Arjun is playing. Meanwhile, his opponent has somewhere around 30 minutes on his clock left, which means his opponent has spent like 1 hour to play around 15 odd moves. This is something that I've noticed about Arjun. He always plays very fast. Now white plays the move queen into b7, gobbling the free pawn. Arjun goes knight a6, and this was the whole point of going knight b8, to go knight a6 and eventually reroute this knight to c5. Now the best move was to go queen c6 according to the engine, but clearly white wasn't well prepared, so he didn't know it. So instead white went queen to b3, but still the position is more or less equal. Arjun goes knight c5, queen c4, and now in this position Arjun played the move queen to a4, and this is the best move for black. Here's something that I want to tell you about him. When I played against him, when I saw him playing in different tournaments, I noticed one thing. Most players, they will focus on the chessboard like this, and they will try to come up with the best moves. If your opponent plays best moves, that is very scary. But you know what's scarier? To not look at the chessboard and to find the best moves. And that is exactly how Arjun plays. He doesn't look at the chessboard much. He's looking here and there, and he still comes up with the best move. It seems as if, he's not concentrating at all, but he still finds the best move, and he still puts you under a lot of pressure, and he plays them very fast. So it just, all of these things, just making him a very, very dangerous opponent. The queen a4 was played, accurate move. Black went e5. Arjun very quickly took on c4, and took this pawn on e5. Arjun has around a 1 hour lead on the clock. His opponent has 27 minutes. Arjun has 1 hour and 27 minutes. Huge advantage. Knight f into e5 was played. The position on the board at this point is completely equal. However, Arjun's lead on the clock gives him a practical chances of pushing for a victory here. Rook d1 was played, attacking the knight. But now Arjun goes knight b6, attacks, keeps an eye on this knight. And the thing here for white is his pieces are still not fully developed, whereas black's bishop is kind of putting pressure on the white queen side. However, black also has some problems, especially these two pawns are a little bit weak. So knight b6 was played. White decides to develop his bishop out quickly with bishop a3. Now this knight is attacked, so Arjun decides it should go to a4. White plays bishop d4. Arjun plays rook a d8. Notice how, he's slowly putting pressure on White's pieces. White took on b6, c into b6, and now White went knight to d7, attacking the rook and also this pawn. Arjun saved the rook, and both sides exchanged a few pieces here, and Arjun recovered his pawn with bishop into b2. Now White cannot play rook b1, otherwise they will just lose this a3 pawn. So instead, White decided first to take on d8, and go rook a2, keeping this pawn protected. Arjun invaded with rook d1 check. King dropped to h2. He went here bishop to d4. Whenever you have a bishop and a knight battle, it is always favorable if there are pawns on both sides of the board. Like there are pawns here and there is a pawn here on the king side and the queen side, because the bishop has long ranging powers. So it can be in one place and it can look at the entire board. Whereas the knight, the problem for the knight is that it can only move, is a short ranging piece. It can only move over a shorter distance. Which is the reason why, even though the material is equal here, it is black who is pushing for an advantage. Knight went to c4, and now this pawn is attacked. You don't want this pawn to die. Arjun went a4. White played g3, consolidating his position somehow and trying to get this king closer to the center. Arjun went bishop c5. Rook c2 was played, and Arjun went rook to d4, keeping an eye on the knight. King g2 was played, king f8. Now both sides are trying to bring their king towards the center of the board. And at this point, the 40 moves were reached after Arjun played the move rook to b3. And what happens after 40 moves is that both players get 30 extra minutes on their clock for the rest of the moves. If you take rook into b3, there is a into b3. And with this bishop, it is always going to be easy for black to control this pawn from queening, because hey, the bishop is a long ranging piece. And at the same time, this bishop can also keep an eye on this king side pawns. Plus, black also has to deal with this pawn, which the bishop can support by coming to d4, okay? So, white didn't take rook into b3. Another move here would have been to go rook c6, which is actually the best move in the position. However, it is not so easy to find out moves like this, especially when you're in time pressure. And even though rook c6 can be played, black can play something like bishop d4 and still keep the pressure going. However, in the game, white decided to play knight to b4. Now, this move may look like a blunder since you're winning a rook, but it's not a blunder. Tell me why in the comment section. Tell me why this move is not a blunder, and what happens after rook c3, how white plays. Tell me in the comment section. So after knight b4, Arjun didn't take this rook. Instead, he went here king to d7, which is the right move to play. White played rook d3 check, and after rook takes, knight takes, he went king to c6. White played king d2. Arjun centralized his bishop, centralized his king, got his bishop on a nice diagonal. Sanan once again was in time trouble. He had like a few minutes on the clock, whereas Arjun had around half an hour to think. King c2, h5, and white played g4. After this move, black is winning, but you have to be very precise in your calculation. But hey, it's Arjun playing. He goes h into g4, f into g4, and grabs this extra pawn. Now there comes knight e5 check. And there is one thing black has to be careful about. If the number of pawns get reduced, like after king d5, knight into f7 is what happened in the game. If the number of pawns get reduced, the closer white gets to a draw. Okay, because if you don't have a pawn here, the pawn cannot become a queen. You cannot make a queen. And if you can't make a queen, you can't win in this endgame. So you need more pawns to stay on the board so that one of them can become a queen. Okay, so knight f7, and it looks like white is getting very close to a draw, since the number of pawns are reducing. However, now this knight is very far away from this king, and it's gonna get trapped. Arjun finds the most precise way to play from here on. He goes bishop f6, king comes. Now he charges at the knight, attacking it. The knight jumps to h6, and now he goes bishop g5. Like, the knight is completely trapped. Okay, this is a classic domination pattern. For example, if the knight goes to g8, the bishop controls all the squares of the knight. Classic domination. The king is going to come here and pick up this knight, and then it's going to be a winning position for black. So That's why after bishop g5, White tried his last trick to get out of this bind. He played here knight f5. Arjun took. Yes. White also took. If you are black, what would you play? Think about it. Here is the trick that White had set. If black goes king f5, all of a sudden the game ends in a draw. Because now this white king comes to f5. And on the next turn, this king is going to b5 and boom, this pawn is going to be picked up. There is just no way black can save this pawn. You have a dark squared bishop, it cannot save the light squared pawn. So that's why after gf5, it is very important not to capture and to go to d5. But hey, this is all elementary for Arjun. He obviously found king to d5. And with that, he won the game. And with this victory, Arjun gave India an important lead in the match. Team India won 3-1 against the host and the very strong Hungarian chess team. By the way, in round number 5, Gukesh played a fantastic game to help India win the match, and you can check that game out here.